It's probably a good idea to just say what the densities are if people are
Probably.
encountering this term for the first time.
Yeah. So if you have an understanding of the chakras, you'll really have an easier time understanding the densities. The densities are like the chakras of the universe. Uh, Ra describes that each one of us are a sort of a microcosm of the macrocosm, where each one of us is a miniature universe, a miniature version of the universe, because everything the source does is fractal in nature, right? So we have 7 energy centers, which are little representations of the 7 densities of consciousness. So we can look at this as like levels of spiritual intelligence that exist in the universe. And as we activate more and more chakras, we're accessing higher levels of spiritual intelligence or consciousness. So the universe moves in this fashion through the density model. And Ra explains that the first density correlates to the root, obviously, the red ray. And it's the density of pure being, pure existence. So you might think of it like this. The source, when the source creates something, the only materials it has is itself. So it has to evolve into everything, change over time. The source doesn't just poof anything into existence, right? Everything is the product of what came before it. So consciousness begins in the universe as just existing as the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. After a few billion years of those 5 elements interacting, a planet solidifies, goes through the rock magma phase, hardens, oceans appear, and then oceans create life. Then consciousness evolves into the second density, correlating to the sacral chakra, which is the density of awareness. And that's when consciousness now can be sort of an organism, like a microbial organism or bacterial life even. And it can move, right? It can interact with its environment because now there's some kind of awareness. There's a very beginning of a self and an other, an organism and an environment. So consciousness spends another few billion years, and that's density. Microbial life, insect life, plant life, animal life, that whole spectrum is second density. And what brings the third density into existence is once consciousness becomes self-aware. And that apparently, I think dolphins probably are very self-aware, but as far as we know through science, we're the only animals who have self-awareness, meaning at some point, and I think that this happened through the advent of language. I think however many millions of years ago, our ape ancestors probably started using guttural noises to refer to objects, which is a very helpful survival adaptation, right? When we make this noise, we mean banana. This noise means danger. This noise means water. And they can start using noises to communicate with each other. Well, that's going to give them a huge advantage to survive. But what it also does is it brings in the conceptual mind. So now the mind can capture an object with this thing called a word or a label. And at some point, they did that to themselves, right? They went, I'm going to give you a noise and you a noise, and every ape now has a unique noise. And once you have a noise to refer to me, now the mind does this thing, this really amazing thing, if you think about it, where it sort of flips in on itself, doing an about face, and becomes an object to itself. So I am is sort of born into reality in the mind. Once there's self-awareness, then we have the third density of consciousness. Now there's a personal self. The belief in separation is the big creation of third density. And that's why we see a lot of amazing things happen, like technology, economics, language, social hierarchy, and everything we have in our world today. And on the negative, we get war, genocide, strife, division, all that stuff. So consciousness experiences third density, apparently for only about 75,000 years. And then once consciousness starts to realize, okay, yeah, we're all in different bodies maybe, but we're all one essence. We're all actually the same energy, knowing itself or consciousness. And that's the beginning of the fourth density, which is the density of love and oneness and unity. So it's like, hey, we're all in this together. Let's stop killing each other and fighting each other. And that's a type of spiritual intelligence, right? So that's fourth density, which lasts for about 30 million years, according to the law of one. And then consciousness moves to the fifth density, correlating to the throat chakra. And that's the density of wisdom or light. And that's a density where the soul spends a lot more time in isolation, whereas in fourth density, it's all about group unity and service to others, traveling the universe to be of service to other planets, trying to bring more harmony and balance to things. Fifth density is sort of like you're going to spend time more by yourself, understanding the nature of reality, the nature of light, the nature of time and space. Incredible psychic abilities develop. Fifth density is where the body becomes a light body, because the vibration of consciousness is so insanely high that it has to, the body that conducts that consciousness has to be pure electromagnetic energy. So that's fifth density. Sixth density is where Ra exists. And that's what they call the law of one density, or the density of unity, where love and wisdom, fourth and fifth density, have to find a perfect balance, which is apparently really difficult to do because our souls tend to gravitate towards one or the other. And so that's where the higher self is born as well, where part of your learning in sixth density to achieve that perfect balance of love and wisdom, like a mother and a father raising a child in a sense, you become the higher self, which means the soul kind of has gained all of the karmic experience it can have through first through sixth, and it needs to sort of up the ante now to keep evolving or polarizing. So what it does is says, I'm going to become a guide to all my previous lifetimes. And so it turns back in time and sort of re-experiences every life it's ever lived from the other side of the curtain, and provides itself with certain catalysts and learning opportunities, and sort of tries to guide the route, which means you have to have a good balance of love and wisdom, because love wants to give, it wants to help, it wants to heal. But the universe works differently, right? There's learning that happens through suffering and through challenge and trials. So we don't want to always just rush to save everybody from their problems, right? There's a balance of like letting someone, really, it's like trusting the universe actually, to let someone be given the lessons they need. So that's what you do in sixth density. Once you complete your time as the higher self, you evolve to the seventh density, which they call the gateway density. And they say, we don't actually have much to report to you about this density because we haven't been there yet. But they do say they have guides and teachers from that density who help them out. And the closest we can describe it is like you have 1 foot still in manifestation and 1 foot in the allness of eternity of the creator. And you're sort of like right before you merge back, you're still reaching out a hand to the universe to be of help and service. And then that merging happens back to the source. And that's one entire cycle of the universe. And so Ra says, just like there's 7 notes on the musical scale, and when you hit the 8th note, you're starting the next octave. They say that's how the universe works. So once the universe evolves through all 7 densities, everything collapses back into the singularity. And then boom, another universe is born, which uses all of the data and information from the previous universe to create the next experiment. And so for that reason, Ra actually doesn't call them universes. They call them octaves. They say in this octave, da, 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 da. And they liken that expansion and contraction of every universe. They say that's like the heartbeat of the creator. So it's a really amazing model.
Wow. And I totally get, I've learned, I understood it a little bit, and I've learned more just from you describing it. And I totally get what you mean when you're talking about, oh yeah, that's feeling so how it's obvious that that's how it should
You
be.
remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.